Emily.
Yeah.
I am the Associate Director in the Office of International Multicultural Studies, which is just on the other side there. And our office is helping the Department of Languages conduct the fair that is taking place tomorrow. We actually have 3 separate fairs every year. On Monday we hosted the Spanish DLI fair. We had about 720 4th, 5th, and 6th graders here, plus teachers, plus parent volunteers, close to 1,000. Chinese has about half the numbers, so it's going to be a little bit more manageable. We're looking at 430 students, plus teachers, plus parent volunteers. It is really important that you leave the training today with a good comprehension of A, how the fair operates, and B, what it is. So DLI is an acronym, it stands for Dual Language Immersion. Tomorrow's the Chinese DLI Fair. It is a big event that's not taking place in just one venue. There are 7 total venues that we've reserved for tomorrow. And the nice thing is they are all right by each other, okay? The 3 main venues which are going to house our large activities are the ballroom. Everybody knows where the ballroom is, right? Okay. I'm gonna ask because some people really don't know campus, okay? Center stage, so right down the hall, and then directly upstairs on top of those is SC206 ABC. Typically those are separated, but they're lifting the curtains, or not actually, they're push walls or whatever. They're opening them up to make SC206 ABC a very large venue. So those are our 3 large venues, and we're going to have 3 main activities there from 9 to 12. Yes.
Question.
Yes.
So the SC206 ABC, is that nearby the computer lab?
Yes, right
The
across
same side,
the hall.
yeah. Okay.
Across the hall.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm gonna talk about what's going on in those venues later. The 4 smaller venues that we have are not for activities, they're for competitions. So we have 4th, 5th, and 6th graders who have registered to compete against each other from different schools. It's kind of a cool thing for them to do. They get to test their Chinese and compete against one another. And we actually have 5 competitions. The 5th one is an art competition. The kids come with their posters. They drop it off. So there really is no head-to-head competition. So that's why I left art off. Art counts, but it doesn't count. I'll talk about that later. So I'm going to talk about what is going on in the venues and then where the volunteers are needed. And it's crucial that anybody helping out with the fair tomorrow understands how the rotation system works. We have 430 4th through 6th graders. We have 3 large venues, and we're rotating every 45 minutes 3 times. So if everybody has one of these ID badges, this is actually just a golden ticket for everybody. All the students are going to get one, all of the parent volunteers, all of you, and all of the teachers, so that they know where they're supposed to be at all times. The 430 kids that we have coming are divided into 3 groups. As you can see here on the left side, there's Group A, Group B, and Group C. It is critical, and I can't stress this enough, that this is followed to a T. Group A must be in SC206 from 9 to 10. At 10 o'clock, they're going to all leave whatever venue they're in, all 430 students, every hour at the top of the hour. We'll switch into another venue, okay? So we have Group A going from SC206, which is upstairs, then they will go downstairs at 10:15. They will go to where? Which is the venue that they'll go to, Group A. They'll go to the ballroom, okay? And then they'll go from the last hour, 11:15 to 12, they'll go just down the hall to center stage, okay?
I have a question.
Yes.
So, like a lot of Chinese students, like more than 10, they're gonna be the judge.
Yes, I need
So
10 judges. I already have 5.
So you're gonna moving with those group or
I'm-
just stay one step?
I'm gonna talk about the
Okay.
competitions separately. That's where it gets a little bit confusing. Once you understand how this works, it's actually quite easy. So let's say that I have, and I do have, we have 7 schools coming, okay? Out of those 7 schools, there are 18 classes. It's about 18 teachers. So that can be 18 mixed 4th, 5th, 6th, right? The competitions are very much separate from the activities. And those students who are in the competitions have already signed up many weeks ago to do so. We're not taking kids to just walk upstairs and say, I want to do a competition. We don't accept that. They're already registered, we know who they are, we have a roster. So what happens is, can anybody tell me on this ID badge, which grade is competing from 9:15 to 10? Fourth grade. Only 4th grade. We don't let them compete against each other. It's not fair. That makes sense, right? 6th grader has higher proficiency than a 4th grader. So all of 4th grade, if they're registered, when I say all of 4th grade, I mean all of those 4th graders who are registered to compete will do so. So what we typically see is a class of about 30 kids total. Out of that, about half will be registered to compete, okay? And those kids will go to their competitions, and the other 15 will be somewhere here. And it changes every 45 minutes. We rotate 3 times. Okay, I'm gonna start at the beginning so you can kind of see what it would be like through the eyes of a student or a teacher. We have bus arrival, which I need help with. I need 5 to 10 volunteers to help me with bus arrival. And I'll talk about that in a little bit. The bus comes, you as a volunteer, you go on the bus, you greet the kids in the language. Once the kids come to campus, there's no English. Unless there is an emergency, like they're crying, they're hysterical, they don't understand you, but this is a dual language fair, so let's definitely speak Chinese with them. You will give out the ID badges, you will take attendance on the bus. These are 10-year-olds, some of them can go missing throughout the day. We have to make sure that UVU's done their part to say, well, at 8:30 before the fair started, that child was accounted for, right? So I'll talk a little bit more about bus arrival, and if you can do bus arrival, it starts at 8:30. We need help, because they have to be escorted from the bus to the grand ballroom. Every single bus that comes, regardless of what group they're in, everybody goes first to the grand ballroom. They're gonna drop off their coats. Those kids who have registered to be in art will drop off their posters, and we're going to take 5 minutes and address the schedule. I'm going to do the same thing that I'm doing now, basically. At least that's the plan, so that the students and teachers can understand that this has to be followed. We learned our lesson from the Spanish fair that was on Monday, and we had some issues with this. People just thought that this was a recommendation when it's not. It's mandatory that they have to follow this. We need to make sure that they understand this. So if they can be told that on the bus, okay, and we tell them again in the grand ballroom when they're all together, all 430 of them, and then they're going to be released. So to begin at exactly 9:15, which is the technical start time of the fair, as you can see here, 8:30 to 9 is arrival. They're all gonna pour in for about a half hour on buses, maybe more. 9:15 is the start of the fair, okay? And depending on their group, and they're going to know which group they're in because it's gonna say on their ID badge. We personalize them, we write it by hand. It takes a long time, but it's worth it. Otherwise it's chaos, right? Because we don't just have one venue, we have 7 with about 500 people, and everybody has to know where to go. So from 9:15 to 10, group A, as you can see, is very self-explanatory where they will be. But the important thing to remember is that during the first hour of the fair, there are competitions going on. Actually, throughout the entire fair, there are competitions going on, and it's important to know who is competing. We already talked about it. 4th grade competes first, right? Then 5th grade, then 6th. Those 4th graders that are competing here, I'm just using 4th grade as an example, right? They're not with the rest of their class. They're literally split up. And what I want to see happen is the teacher stays with the kids who are here in one of these venues, and the parent volunteer always stays with the competitors upstairs. That would be ideal. And the only time you as volunteers will be moving around is in the morning when they get here. Otherwise, I'm going to talk about what the activities are in each of these venues. You'll stay put from 9 to 12, 9 to 1. 9 to 12. 12 is when the fair activities and competitions end, but then at 12:15 we do an award ceremony and lunch. The kids bring a sack lunch, and they're all going to sit on the floor in the grand ballroom from 12:15 to 1. So we don't really need as many volunteers the last hour of the fair, from 12 to 1. You're really needed from 9 to 12. But if you can help with cleanup and all that stuff and escorting the kids from the grand ballrooms back to their buses, that would be very helpful. We'll only need about 7. That's all listed on the document that you have in front of you there. So let's talk about what's going on. In the grand ballroom, we're doing a Chinese province activity, okay? We've chosen 12 provinces to represent in the grand ballroom. There's going to be 12 booths, and ideally we would have 2 volunteers at each booth, and the kids are going to come up to you with a little Chinese travel booklet that we've created for them. It's all in Chinese. They have questions that they're going to ask you. You're going to be given answers to the questions. You don't have to be experts on the province, okay? They'll ask you stuff like, in Chinese, obviously, what is the population of this province? And they have to write the answer. So you'll respond in Chinese. What's the largest city, right? Stuff like this. So they have to successfully get answers to 2 out of 8 questions, and then they get a stamp. We've created custom stamps that have the name of the province on it. So it's kind of like a passport activity. So that's really fun, and it's really easy. So if that's something that you can do, there's 12 booths. Ideally, we would have 2 volunteers per booth, but if we only have we need at least 1, right? So we at least need 12, but ideally we would have 24. And you'll stay there. So once 9:15 comes, you'll stay there until 12. If you can. Some volunteers are only able to volunteer for an hour or 2 at a time. Everybody's different with their schedules. Center stage, I have to look, calligraphy. So there's going to be a calligraphy activity happening in center stage. There's going to be, in all of these venues, a professor, one of the Chinese professors, and a student leader. It's actually a student leader that's running calligraphy, a talented student. And then in SC206, we have paper cutting. So there will be more or less 2 leaders per venue that will help making sure all the volunteers are in place and everything. And there will be microphones in each venue. And whoever is, actually in these tours, the microphones are important. That's not your responsibility at all. Whoever is running calligraphy, they'll be giving directions and talking on a mic. And the same for paper cutting. There's 21 tables, 21 round tables in each of these venues. They're going to be filled with little kids sitting around them. And ideally, again, we would have 1 volunteer per table. It's 21 volunteers here, 21 volunteers here. So that as our student leader is giving directions on calligraphy and stuff and is walking around, you as the volunteer, like me, how we are now, I would just talk to you and make sure you're following directions and interact with the kids. The whole point is to interact with them. You speak, they respond in the target language. It's supposed to be a day of engaging language fun. Okay? So those are the 3 main activities, and that's all on here. Everything I'm telling you is really right on here, but some people learn better when it's audio. Okay? Questions?
Question is, how many volunteers are going to be the calligraphy and the paper cutting?
The question was how many volunteers are going to be in, I'm just repeating for the video. So we need at least 1 volunteer per table. There are 21 tables here and 21 tables here.
Necessarily have to be Chinese students?
Ideally. I shouldn't do it. I don't speak the language. As a teacher who's bringing kids, I would hope that the people who are interacting with my students are somewhat proficient.
Even
in the
like
language.
me or Hector that are in beginning, we would be able to do it because interaction with students, I'm pretty sure we'd be able to do it. The little that we know or all that we know, I'm pretty sure we'd be able. So even we're not Chinese, but we are Chinese students.
Mhm.
We would be able to do
We
it.
had several volunteers from the Spanish fair that are not
I just
Spanish
worry
speakers.
about
Yeah.
not enough Chinese students gonna be involved.
Yeah.
So
I have 88 students that signed up overall. With the sheets of paper that I received, I have 88.
Oh.
Now that people that RSVP to come to the meetings, not many.
Yeah.
So it depends on the student and how liable they are to come and how we, you know.
Yeah, 88 is definitely enough. We've had this training today and another one earlier, about the same amount of people came, so. So that's just volunteers for these venues. It's not, your level of proficiency doesn't have to be insanely high. However, my judges, you have to be fluent. Okay? And I'm gonna talk about the competitions. Do I have judges here?
I think
I need 5 more. Actually, the one who
We
signed
have
up for
5.
art doesn't need to even speak.
Yeah.
So
Actually-
I need 3 more. Yeah,
Actually, we have like more than 10
that's perfect.
years.
I'm gonna show you the list that we have.
Yeah, it's on the back of that. Okay, so I love to talk with my hands, so I'm gonna do it one more time. I just wanna make sure that everybody's on the same page as far as the rotations are concerned. 9:15 to 10. My group A is going to be in SC 206, which is, which activity? Paper cutting. The only people that are not gonna be in paper cutting from group A, from 9:15 to 10, are the 4th grade competitors. They're gonna be out competing. But the kids from their class who haven't signed up to compete, they'll be in there. Does that make sense? Then when we rotate at the hour, on the hour, at 10, those 4th grade kids who are upstairs competing will rejoin their class for the 10:15 to 11 rotation. And then, does anybody know who will leave to go upstairs to compete? 5th grade. So on and so forth for 6th grade. So we have a lot of coming and going, separation of classes and so on and so forth. Okay? It's really important that everybody just knows to refer to this if you have a lost kid, for example. All you have to do is say, can I see your ID? And you just gotta look for their group. It'll say A, B, or C. You look at your watch or your phone and you determine where they're supposed to be. If they have nothing listed where the student ID looks a little different, there's a line here for competition. And it'll say which competition they're in. If there's nothing written, they're not in a competition. They should be wherever their group is. But if they're, let's say, let me give you a scenario. If I have a 5th grade student who's lost and it's 10:30 and they're supposed to be in impromptu talk. 5th grade student, 10:30, impromptu talk. Which venue should they be in?
What is the pump?
SC 214.
It's on the right side of your guys'
The competition locations are up here. And it says which competition it is, right next to it.
Okay.
Everybody knows where these SC venues are upstairs on the 2nd floor. You know where the cafeteria is?
Yeah.
And the lab, the computer lab? They're all right there. And you can crawl between them, they're that close. So that's really nice. Okay?
Yeah, if some student lost, we only ask us 3 questions. One is even include ourselves. What the time is right now? And
Yeah.
what grade they
Which
are.
group?
Which group? Oh yeah, which group?
And
no,
if they're
which
in
grade and
competition.
we depend which
Mhm.
which game they're playing or which.
Yeah. If they're in a competition, that changes a little bit.
Mhm.
If it's the hour in which their grade is competing. I might have a 4th grade competitor who's lost at 12. They've already competed, so they should just find their group.
Got it.
So my judges have a kind of an easier job. You just stay in your venue the entire day, 9 to 12. Ideally, like I said, everybody has their own schedule. So some people are only able to do an hour, some 2, some the whole 3. that is my preference.
I'm for sure the judges should be more than 5. There have like 6 or 7 more, but they can't show up today.
I need 10 judges, that's it.
Yeah, I think it's.
If I have
Yeah.
some leaving early, then yes,
No,
I'm
no,
gonna.
no, they're all gonna be there
Then I
at
just need
10:30 to 12.
8:30.
8:30 to 12.
8:30 to 12:30 actually.
Yeah,
I'm
12:30.
I'm gonna talk about that in a second. Well,
Okay.
I can do 12:15.
Okay.
I'm gonna let those go who are not judges, and I'll talk to you more about competition since that's information that
Got it.
will just confuse people even more.
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
No problem. Are there any questions? Can I ask what time we're able to begin, to have an idea? Alma's the one gathering volunteer information, and unfortunately, nobody has signed up. And we understand, but we need volunteers at 8 to help with setup in these various venues. In the main 3 venues, we need help with setup. But people have only signed up from 9 and on. So we're a small team. If anybody can come at 8 for setup, 8:30 for bus arrival, to greet the kids, they're excited. Some of them are coming from far away. You get on the bus, you welcome them in the language and everything. So if you can come before 9, you will be used, you're needed.
Where would we meet at 8?
At 8, since everything is so centralized, go to the grand ballroom. That is the central, that's the central location. We're gonna have a table there. Any volunteer that didn't make it today, like I said, everybody needs to wear one of these. Everybody, volunteers, para-volunteers, students, teachers, us. Because without this, nobody knows what's going on, right? So that stack will be on a table at the grand ballroom, probably out front with some signs that say that
Are
it's.
there volunteers that will be signing, like, will be filling these out for the kids too, or?
We are doing
teachers?
all of that before, so that when they get it on the bus, all they have to do is tie that yarn around their neck and they're good to go. Good questions. Any other questions? And if not, I'll release you. My phone number, if you guys have any questions or concerns or anything tomorrow or tonight, call me. I'm the fair coordinator, but I'm also the judge coordinator. So my position tomorrow all day is upstairs in the SC. I don't leave there. Other professors will be in these venues, but I will be here. Okay, and again, my name is Emily. If I don't pick up tomorrow, don't take it personally. It's a very hectic, chaotic day. You can call me, blow my phone up if I'm not picking up. It's just because I'm probably very busy doing something. But the success of this fair depends on volunteer support. With a staff of 10, there's nothing we can do when 400 kids come to campus. Logistically, it's not possible. So thank you for volunteering your time. Your professors will take note who's there and who's not there. So keep that in mind and maybe pass that information along to anybody else who is on the fence about coming or not. So, and the kids are really great, guys. Like, they're excited and they want to speak the language, especially for the competitions. They've been preparing to beat out other kids. They're gonna be receiving medals. We have gold, silver, and bronze engraved medals, So think back when you were in 4th or 5th grade, you save all your certificates and your medals. So this is another event for them to do something cool. So if you're not a judge, you can go.